Alright guys, welcome back to Hollywood Mechanic. Today we are going to give you 5 tests to see if your mechanic knows what he's talking about. Alright, first of all, I need to preface this with, again, my clientele are typically focused at supercars. So these are some kind of very precise questions and tests that you're going to be asking that only a expert technician will be able to answer. So if you're taking your Honda or your Toyota in and they don't do exactly what I'm offering, chances are they may still be qualified enough to work on your vehicle. But if you have that special Ferrari you want to get worked on and you want it done the right way, these 5 tests will point you into the right direction. Test number 1 is going to be called the hose clamp test. Now, in a Ferrari, Aston Martin, you do have hose clamps just like you would have on a Toyota or a Honda. However, they're a little bit different. You don't see the screw style clamps. Typically, you see a one-time use clamp like this. And the reason for this is vibration resistant. You pinch on the clamp using a tool like this to lock it in, and it has the maximum inner diameter in millimeters right there on the clamp. So if you need to remove one or something break, you need to replace it with a similar clamp. Now if you go to a shop and you want to test them before you bring your car to them, bring them a clamp like this. If you want to get it off your car, it's very easy. You can just use a pair of electrical wire dikes. In my case, I have like some heavy duty ones. And if you just clip across the top of it, it opens up and then allows you to remove it from your car. Do not twist this trying to get this free or try to break this metal cable off, because if you do that and this is holding something plastic, you may break it. But if you just clip this off, these are very easy to get online or through McMaster-Carr. You're just going to search clamp with the number size that you have and OET. And you can even use a regular dike to clamp it back on the car. So this is a simple test, very low risk. If you bring this to a shop and say, hey, I was thinking about bringing my Ferrari in for service, but I did notice one of these clamps was missing. Can I buy one off of you? And then I'm gonna bring my car to you once I put it back on the car. If the mechanic brings you another clamp like this that's unused with the same size or a similar size that would work, that's your guy. I mean, you have to stock them. I have a whole row right there with every size from 7mm inner diameter up to 38.1, and I even keep more for the 101 and 99mm for the intake boots. And if you want to smoke test an engine, you have to remove these clamps. So if you don't have them and then you're doing tests, either one, they're going to be trying to force off the old clamp and reuse it or bend it and manipulate it, which violates its integrity, or they're going to be ordering one and waiting for it to arrive, or even worse, using something else like a zip tie or an old screw style clamp. So this is their first test. If they pass with this, then you're good. Also, another one you can use if you don't really see one like that is you could buy one of these at AutoZone. This is a fuel line clamp. It uses a screw to then pinch the hose, and this allows you to be able to apply more torque. So it's used for a fuel injection line because it keeps the line from being knocked off. If you were to buy one of these for $5 and then take the screw out and then bring them just this, then you don't have to remove anything from your car. You can just say, hey, my hose clamp broke. Do you have another one that will work for this same size? And again, on it, it says 13 to 15mm. But if they're not bringing you something comparable to this, then I would stay away from them. They're going to be using not the right clips when they're putting your car back together. All right, test number 2 for your prospective technician is going to be electrical. It's extremely important for your technician to have a very thorough understanding of electricity and its principles, because every car nowadays has a wiring harness, and the ability to know how to test a wiring harness is extremely important. So what you're going to ask your prospective technician is, I'm having problems with my starter. How do you check the starter cable to see if it's good? And this is a very simple answer. It's done by a voltage drop test. You want a technician who's going to immediately tell you voltage drop test. You're going to put your voltmeter into volts and measure from the positive red terminal on your battery to the positive main wire input on your starter. You're measuring the voltage across the wire, and then you're going to start it and observe the load during the starting. And if you have anything more than 0.4, 0.3 volt drop on that wire, the wire is no good. You're losing voltage to the wire. And a lot of people see a no start condition, they touch voltage to the starter wire and to ground, and they see a presence of 12.5 volts, but when they try to turn it over, that goes away and they assume, oh, the starter is no good because I saw voltage there before. But if the wire is bad, you will see 12.5 volts at the starter, but when you put it under load, it's not able to carry that load. The reason that you're seeing the 12.5 volts is because this is just basically showing the resistance of the wire. And if a tech says we're going to measure the resistance of the wire, that's the wrong answer. The resistance of a wire is just how connected it is from one side to the other. So a small or damaged wire may very well show the exact same reading as a large, healthy wire. Replacing the starter might even work for a little bit, but eventually you may burn up another starter, blow another starter fuse, because the wire itself is bad. So they need to be able to tell you voltage drop tests, and they should be able to do it pretty quickly. Obviously, if you're talking to a receptionist or someone like that, then you're not going to get a good answer. But this is why I highly recommend going to the shop, talking to one of the techs, explaining, hey, I'm going to be a long-time client. Anyway, yeah, that's your second test. All right, the third test that we're going to give you for your mechanic is what is the torque spec on an M6 bolt. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into determining what the torque spec of a bolt is, including the pitch of the bolt, what the bolt is made out of, what the bolt is going into, and then sometimes none of those factors are enough and you need the manufacturer's specification for it. But the M6 is extremely common. It's valve covers, transmission oil pan, bolts, and it is a very small bolt, and this is one that I see over torqued a lot. Typically in almost every manual you'll find the torque spec for an M6 by 1.0 thread pitch to be 10 Newton meters, or about 7.5 foot-pounds. So if it's a good tech that uses his torque wrench often and is busting out valve covers and transmission pans, and they're doing it with a torque wrench, they'll have this in their mind ready to go. So if you find an answer between 8 and 12 Newton meters, or you can do the conversion to find out what he says in foot-pounds, if he's ready on the go with that answer, or if he says, hey, there are other factors, but usually around 10 Newton meters, then you got a guy that's going to take care more likely and make sure that things go back the way they're supposed to. All right, test number 4 for your supercar mechanic is going to be ask them how they test a carbon ceramic rotor on a new car. This is a little tricky because even the dealerships don't know the right answer to this. And the only reason that I'm putting it in here is because it's extremely important. Your life very much depends on it. Carbon ceramic rotors are a newer technology, and the way that they used to be measured for their health was either by an appearance or by the thickness of the rotor measured across the rotor, or the weight of the rotor. These are all things that were used to determine carbon ceramic rotor health. However, Brembo realized that this was flawed because not all rotors are being used the same way, and so sometimes the material can deteriorate due to, let's say, low heat cycles and not become thinner or lighter. So there's a new tool by Carbotech that is used to determine the health. It's an electrical induction tool. It's very expensive and very few shops have it. As a matter of fact, Porsche Beverly Hills is the only one I was able to find in Los Angeles that has it. But Audi USA says for all of their cars, there's a technical service bulletin out saying that this tool is the only way to definitively determine the health of a rotor. Unfortunately, cars from 2017 and up are the only ones that will be for sure calibrated to use the tool. So if you're trying to test out your shop, say you have a 2017 Ferrari 488 or a 2017 Porsche GT3 with carbon ceramic rotors, how do you test the rotors? If they say by weight or by thickness or any other means by appearance, that's not accurate. And if you really want someone who knows what they're doing, they need to say, hey, there's a special tool that we use. It's you know, then you'll know. All right, the next test for you working on going to these shops is ask them what cover they use while working on your car. Now, the most important thing is that they use some type of cover because, again, your paint is very important and your car is more than likely got a big motor that's tucked into the frame somewhere and hard to get to. So you want to make sure they're using something. I use a blue plasti film that you just sticks to the car, does not leave an adhesive, and it prevents swirl marks from happening. It's a great tool. But there's also factory-made covers. So if you're going to a Ferrari-only shop, they should have covers that are made for the body panels. And if they don't, it's okay. They just need to be using some type of cover on your paint while it's being worked on. So if you want to, let's say, hey, I want to do just an oil change with you guys, knowing that you're doing it as just a test, let them work on the car, ask them for some photos or ask them to see the car while they're working on it and see if they're using covers. This is extremely important to preserving your paint. No tech is perfect, especially when you're dealing with oils. Things drop, and if you don't have some kind of protection between the paint and your work area, it's going to cause problems. All right, so bonus question. This is extremely difficult because no one knew the answer to this definitively, and it still is a highly debated topic, but what oil is better, Group 5 or Group 3, and why? Now, I would be shocked if you can find one technician or a shop that really can give you a good answer on that, and for that, you need to watch my other video on Redline versus Mobil 1. But basically, a Group 5 oil is an ester-based oil, which is polar and easily holds on to its additive package that gives you the performance you need out of your oil, as well as having a longer lasting oil. In Group 3 oils, these are hydrocracked petroleum oils that are non-polar and they acidify and they do not last as long. This is going to be like Mobil 1 versus Redline or Motul. If they say liquid moly, that is still a hydrocracked oil, and if you see them bragging about how great liquid moly is, it's not the right shop.